Coming up on the payoff. This has been a long time coming for me. I mean, a long time. Hollywood Henderson, before I got sober, I would read about him. He's an NFL great, played for the Cowboys when the Cowboys were really America's team. Played in 3 Super Bowls and developed a huge crack and cocaine problem and flamed out of the league and flamed out of life in grand fashion. And his return to the top was also grand. He gives back to the rooms of recovery, gives back to recovery, gives back to people. Gave back to us here today by joining me. But this guy was Deion Sanders before there was Deion Sanders. And now he is just such a serious inspiration. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear this. Hollywood Henderson, Thomas Henderson now. Used to be Hollywood, now it's Thomas Henderson. But some of the stories here are just absolutely amazing. The guy's drug use really ramped up when he became good friends with Richard Pryor and Marvin Gaye. And we talk about that and so much more. But this is a good one. I'm proud of this, and I love this guy for giving me the time. I love this guy too for giving me his music. Kevin Souza.
Stand by the ocean floor.
Hello.
Thomas, you've proven to be a very patient alcoholic. I apologize. So where are you right now? Are you in Boca Raton?
Yes.
Okay.
My home is here, and I have a home in Austin, but I spend most of my time in Florida.
Okay. You grew up in Austin, Texas?
I was born and raised in Austin, Texas.
And you ended up moving to Oklahoma City. I guess you played your first 2 years of high school in Austin, right?
Yes. I went to elementary, middle school, and 1 year at Henderson High School in East Austin.
And so you ended up moving to Oklahoma City. What were some of the reasons behind the move?
We were poor. There were 7 of us in a 2-bedroom, and 2 little brothers slept with me, and so I was wet on and crapped on, and at around 15, I just knew that I had to leave that place. And lucky for me, I had a grandmother in Oklahoma City who adored me. And, I just made that phone call. We were at Zilker Park on Juneteenth, 1969. And, I walked out of the park because my mom was raising Cain with me and cussing me out. And I went to a phone booth and called my grandmother collect. And she sent me a bus ticket. And I was on a Greyhound to Oklahoma City.
So you mentioned your mother raising Cain with you. Was there alcoholism in your family growing up?
Yes. My mom and dad were both alcoholics. I was raised by a stepfather who drank a lot. But my real father was a drug addict and alcoholic himself. So I was in a no-win situation. I never thought I would drink. But as I look back at my life, I don't remember 1982. I don't remember 1983 until after I got sober. I had started, I started as a teetotaler, beer, wine, cigarettes, marijuana. Mess around with a little hallucinogens.
When did you start, Thomas? Like your first drink around?
Well, I was 9 years old. My mother left a Mickey in the back seat of the car. Mickey is a half pint.
Oh, yeah.
That fit perfectly in a pair of Levi's. And so my mother left a Mickey in the car, and it was on a Saturday afternoon or something. And I went to the bar with her, and I was about 8 or 9. They were drinking, so I just sat in the car and drank the half pint and threw up and don't remember, you know. And so I got drunk at 8 or 9. I never drank any more Mickeys, for sure.
But you drank again, right? Like a typical alcoholic.
I drink. I drink beer. I'd have a sip of wine. I'd have a guzzle of wine, but nothing too serious for the longest time.
When did it start to pick up? You go to Oklahoma City. You ended up, I guess you went to the Air Force?
No, I was an inch from going to Vietnam. I was born in 1953, so in 1971, I was 18 years old, and I got my draft notice, 1A. But a funny thing happened. I had flunked geometry. I'm great in math, and I love math. But I had a teacher in 1968 at Anderson High School, geometry. I didn't like him, and so it was the last class of the day, so I just would go to the pool hall, go up on the streets where my buddies were. And so flunking geometry on purpose kept me from going to Vietnam. My status went from 1A to 1S, which is school.
Looking at your football career, you were like a rangy, super athletic linebacker when guys weren't as big as they were today. You were a super athlete, but you walked on in college at Langston College. How did you end up walking on? How did you end up not getting a scholarship? Take me through that. So right here, I kind of screwed up. Technical issues prevented us from here in Hollywood, clearly, and I don't want to waste your time, but I want to cover what he said because it was pretty awesome. Going into college, he said he wanted to play at Marshall University, and this was after the plane crash in 1970. He said he wrote Marshall a letter years after the plane crash and, looking to play football there, and that didn't work out. And he said he thought to himself, well, if I can't get to Marshall, a team that barely doesn't have a team, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said he heard about a historically black college, Langston College in Oklahoma, and he drove up there. He said it was first practice. He said he practiced on a Tuesday, and the starting defensive end got hurt, broke his leg, and he was starting on a Saturday against Kentucky State University, and he never looked back. He said the guy who broke his leg, his coach or his brother was on the coaching staff. So everybody thought that his brother would get his job back, but Thomas says that he was raising too much hell by that point, and he never turned back. Drafted in the first round, a top 20 pick by the Cowboys. One of the reasons why is because he ran a 4.4 40 in a cow pasture in front of a guy named Tank Younger from Grambling, if my memory serves me correctly. And then Gil Brandt and the Cowboys got that information. They drafted Hollywood. He thought he was going to get taken by the Rams, and then we'll pick the conversation up here. And the rest you can hear very well, or we'll say well.
I left Langston that day, and I didn't go back for many years. But in other words, I went to Dallas, Texas, the day I got drafted, and I didn't go back in. I mean, I stayed there.
So this is 1975, right?
Yes.
And you go to Dallas, which is at the time the city itself is really picking up. I think it's right before the show Dallas. The Cowboys are becoming America's team, and you are from this small college in Langston, Oklahoma. That's got to be some heady stuff for a young man.
It was very heady, but I started to make my presence known pretty fast. Tom Landry didn't talk to me very much. I can't claim that we had 5 conversations. And if we did have 5 conversations, 4 of them were negative. Like, there was something, I was doing something. But I remember one time that I'm a rookie. I'm in rookie camp, and here comes all the veterans. Blaine Nye and John Nyland and Ralph Neely and Rayfield Wright and Billy Joe Dupree and Roger Staubach. I mean, these, I'm looking at these men because, I know who they are. And we line up one day, and so the veterans had come in, I had already obliterated the rookie camp. Everybody knew that I was going to be on this football team. And so one day, Landry came over to the defensive side because he's got all of his boys in. Because before that, there was like 100 rookies in Thousand Oaks trying to make that roster. And that year, 12 rookies made that team called the Dirty Dozen. But on one particular day, Tom Landry came over to defense. He said, "Henderson, come here." He said, and he put me in a two backers on a goal line. He said, "The play goes that way," and he started demonstrating. "I want you to go through this hole. If the play goes that way, I want you to loop around, and do this." And I said, "Yes, sir." And so they lined up. The first team, the fullback was named Young, and Robert Newhouse and Young. And boy, the play started. I ran through a hole, helmet to helmet with the fullback, and he had the ball, and the ball flew one way, and he flew the other, and I got up and I ran over to Landry, and I said, "Like that?" He said, "Yeah, just like that." The only time he ever coached me in my 5 years there.
And so you start off that first year, I guess the first couple years you're playing special teams, that's on the field, but you're definitely turning heads. What's going on off the field, Thomas, in those first few years in Dallas? You mentioned you were a weed guy at Langston College. What's happening with the alcohol and the drugs off the field?
I'm still a teetotaler, 2 cans of beer, I'm done. I've never drank whiskey. I've never drank bourbon. I've never drank scotch. Cavassier, I've never, vodka, and so I was still a couple of beers and marijuana, just a lot of marijuana.
And then when did it ratchet up? You started that third year, right? You start all 14 games, and the team is real good.
Well, let's back up.
Okay.
So we go to Miami to play Super Bowl 10.
Against the Steelers, right?
Against the Steelers. And I go to a concert, like on Wednesday or Thursday. It was the Temptations and the Pointer Sisters. I'm sitting on the front row, and one of the Pointer Sisters started looking at me. And I started winking at her, and just before you know it, I was in our hotel room. And we started a relationship. Her name is Anita Pointer of the Pointer Sisters. And that off season, which would have been, January of 76, I went to Los Angeles to hang out with her. Actually, I went to Sausalito, which is outside of San Francisco. But in that relationship, I met Richard Pryor and Marvin Gaye.
Okay.
And so, in the middle of the day, Marvin would be in the studio, Richard would be at home, and I'm staying with Dennis Edwards, the lead singer for the Temptation, is letting me stay with him. So between Richard Pryor and Marvin Gaye, I got a taste of cocaine. And I liked it. Do you remember what you thought the first time you did a line? I thought, I was hyper guy anyway, upbeat guy. It just took me to another level. And I liked the way it tastes. I liked the cleanliness of it. It just rang my bell, the snorting of cocaine. And so that whole off season, you're out there in Los Angeles, but you're getting ready to. Your career's getting ready to take off too. Break that down for somebody, because that doesn't make sense, right? Here's a guy who now is starting to use cocaine, I guess recreationally at the time, but you really your play on the field starts to take off on the best team in the world. Yes. So my second year, we didn't make the playoffs, and I went to Los Angeles pretty quickly. And so this would be 76, 77. And so we win Super Bowl 12 in 1977. And I got on a jet and went straight to Los Angeles to see Anita, hang out with Marvin and Richard Pryor. And so one night I'm at Richard's house, and he's in the kitchen and he's doing something with the cocaine. He's using ether, and he's creating this freebase. Freebase is before crack.
Yeah, and it's like a clean version of crack, right? Like a high-end version almost.
Well, I didn't like the way it tastes. So, God put these. Listen, I didn't like a freebase. I didn't like the smell. I didn't like the taste. And Richard was crazy about me not smoking. I've been smoking cigarettes. I don't smoke anymore, but I had been smoking cigarettes since I was a kid. And so, I'm chain smoking, cigarettes, because I'm snorting the coke and he's smoking the coke. and I don't like the taste. He's putting this cocaine on a plate. He's pouring the ether on it. It's drying. Then he takes a razor blade and brings it all to the middle in a little pile of powder. And it's got this glass pipe with the screens on it. And I try it, and I just can't stand the vapor, the taste in the vapor. It was awful. It wasn't clean. So if freebase would have stayed the same, I would have been fine.
But it evolved into crack. I read something or I heard something. Spencer Haywood was out there around the same time you were. NBA player, played for the Lakers and was a superstar.
I know him.
I figured you probably knew him. He got into freebase, and he was gone, he says. He was married to Aman, I think, and he got into freebase, and it was a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, you can't leave it. And the same with crack, I couldn't leave it. But so we win Super Bowl 12, and life is going good. 78, I make the Pro Bowl. And so, but then, I really started to ramp up my recreational use of cocaine. Every bar in town, every bartender, the places I went, my partner, I had a nightclub, my partner was a cokehead. Not many Cowboys were doing cocaine. Later there were some players who started doing cocaine, but I didn't have any cocaine buddies on Dallas Cowboys team.
Do you think that's because you were sort of ahead of the curve with the LA scene, and these are guys who just weren't exposed to the type of things you were?
I think that's correct. Yes. And so in November of 1979, we're playing the Washington Redskins. Preston Pearson comes to me before the game and gives me a handkerchief. It's got a Cowboy logo on it, and he says, I'm making these and I'm selling these. If you get a chance, show it to the TV camera. They always put the camera on you. I said, okay, Preston. So I just stuck the towel in the front of my pants, and I played the whole game with the towel on. And I come to the sideline, and here comes the camera. And I go, and I pull on the flag for Preston. I'm doing this for Preston. And Tom Landry fired me for that.
You guys I'm guessing you guys were losing the game.
We were losing the game.
Yeah.
And he fired me, and I didn't have the opportunity to tell him why I had the flag in the first place. That meeting went awful.
After the game you met with him, I read this. After the game you met with him, and you did a bunch of coke, right, before you go to meet with him.
Yes. That morning, Monday morning before Thanksgiving, I filled up both nostrils with about a half a gram of cocaine. I was, my feet wasn't touching the ground nowhere. Yeah,
and you go to meet with him, and obviously that was the end of your career with the Cowboys, because he one of the things I want to touch on you, and I think it might just be a way that you term it, or it may just be an accountability thing with you, being in recovery, you always say he fired you. You don't say you were cut by the Cowboys. You say Tom Landry fired you. Is there a reason why you use that word fired?
Yes, because I was a great player. I was an asset to the football team. I ran down on punts as a starter. I ran down on kickoffs as a starter. I intercepted passes. I sacked quarterbacks. I covered O.J. Simpson and Wilbur Montgomery one-on-one. I was an asset to the football team. So, you get cut in training camp. You get fired during the regular season.
I figured there was a reason behind that. A couple more things. I just want to go backwards. A couple things I want to touch on. Were you using cocaine in that Super Bowl 13, the one in Miami with the nasal spray?
Yeah, and it got to the point to where I was intaking so much blow that a big scab formed in my nasal cavity. And, I had an awful headache, and I knew my day was going to be bad if I didn't take care of my nose.
Yeah.
And so, I carried it, and I regret it. And when an addict is providing his treatment,
self-medication,
what could go wrong?
We're the worst chemists in the world.
What could go wrong? So I could have went to the 49ers. Bill Walsh had claimed me on waivers, and I just, I just quit. I said, I'm not going to the 49ers. I'm going home. I eventually went to the 49ers.
Okay.
Because they had my waiver rights. And so I went out to play for Bill Walsh and did about 4 games, hurt my neck. But he came to work one day and saw me in my locker, and I'm like in space, I'm snorting and smoking and I'm crazy. And he lets me go, but he doesn't tell anybody that I'm a drug addict. I cried to the team doctor about the cocaine habit I had. And
so at this point, just what's going off the tracks, and you literally can't control it. It's no more fun. It's no more Hollywood Henderson. This is like a monkey on your back.
That's right, and I don't know what to do with the monkey. And the monkey even feels sorry for me.
Yeah.
The monkey is looking at me and says, boy, now look. And so Walsh just brings me a check to work and says, you're out of here. And I get fired. And he says, call Bum Phillips.
In Houston, the Oilers coach.
Yeah. And so I said, okay. So I called Bum, and Bum says, how much can I get you for? I said, 150. Well, I don't know that Robert Brazil is making $45,000 because he's still on his first contract. And I come in there, I'm probably the third highest paid player on the team behind Earl and Stabler.
Earl Campbell and Kenny Stabler.
And so they, word got out how much I was making, and boy, the locker rooms turned on me. But I still played well, and I put the Oilers in the playoffs. I intercepted the pass from the Minnesota Vikings to end the game, and because they were close to marching in. And but they said they didn't want me back in Houston.
Was it personal stuff? They didn't want you back?
No, it was. They knew I was a drug addict.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they thought your personal life was a mess.
Yeah, and teammates were snitching on me, and I had knocked one of the offensive linemen out in practice. He called me the N-word, and I knocked him out. I was loaded. And so, like my addiction was so bad that I couldn't take you where I lived in Houston. I couldn't take you to the house I lived in. because I was so discombobulated. Is that a word?
Yeah, that's a word. So you wouldn't be able to find the house?
No.
Yeah.
No, because I went there, loaded, and I left loaded. So everything in between there is a mystery.
And people that don't know, like addicts, and I was a junkie, and you end up messed up at work all the time, which is unfortunate. For me at least, I was like, oh, I'll control it, and then guess what happens? You're at work. For you, you're at the facility, right? And you're on drugs.
Yeah. So after Houston, I go to treatment. John Wooten pulled me to the side, called me to a meeting, said, hey, man, everybody knows what's going on with you.
Now, who's John Wooten?
John Wooten blocked for Jim Brown.
Okay.
Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
He was an offensive lineman. He's
Okay.
a good brother. And John confronted me, and I cried like a baby, and I went to treatment. And I went to treatment in Arizona, 1981. And Don Shula was interested in me. So I signed with the Dolphins. And, the worst place you can send a cocaine addict is Miami, Florida.
I read that you came back from that Super Bowl 13, with like 4 ounces of coke.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but how about I'm living there now?
Yeah, that's trouble.
But God has a great sense of humor, and I broke my neck and fractured C1, which is the very top of the spinal cord. But he blessed me that he didn't paralyze me. And I went back to Dallas, and I smoked up $150,000 worth of crack that year. Every time my check came, you get paid by the game, so I was getting about $7,000 a week from the Dolphins. And there was no direct deposit at the time, so I'd be out there looking for the mailman. And so life got pretty dark, and so now I'm smoking crack, and I'm lighting it with 151 rum, and I'm drinking the 151 rum after I smoke, so I can come down from the moon.
Who are you hanging out with while you're doing this? Are you isolating, or are you still just...
I'm isolating with a family, but they give me my own part of the house, and they see me 1 or 2 days a week, and so and with my last 3 or 4 checks, I saved up, and I moved to California, and this is the story that it's difficult to tell, but I'm going to tell you. I was charged with sexual assault. Now, I was a sex symbol, and women love me, and I love women. But in all honesty, I don't remember that night.
And this is 1983.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was accused of sexual assault, I'm going, no, women love me. What do you mean?
Yeah, for people who don't know, Hollywood was primetime before primetime.
And see, I started having these thing called blackouts. Well, I would get so high on the crack that I would drink a half a pint of 151 rum because I knew that would settle me down. But it also made me unconscious, conscious, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah, you were a blackout drinker.
Yes, because I wasn't a drinker. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and that's what happens when you become an addict. I think, and you're taking uppers, you overshoot the mark a lot of times with the alcohol to take your nerves down.
Yeah, but when you tell this story as an addict, people go, "Oh, he's just making excuses." I ask anybody to, you can call all the women who I dated or loved or had one night stand with. I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. I don't remember having 5 or 6 charges of me assaulting or sexually assaulting anybody. So, and I say with all honesty, I don't remember that night. But I do remember the police knocking on my door
the next morning.
Yes.
And then that's it. And then it's over.
It's over. It's over. And I tell the police, I go, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I was in treatment.
And this is your last rehab. Tell me, give me a refresher, because this is your line. You have a take on the word rehabilitation. I've seen some of your talks. And what do you say about the word rehabilitation?
Tell me, remind me.
Okay, so you say rehab, right? Like is a rehabilitation, like a rehabilitation, like and, as if you had something going on in the first place.
Yes.
It's a funny name. It's not necessarily the right name, but you end up in rehab.
Yes.
And what happens to you? How do you get that bug of recovery? Because you got to want it. You have to want it.
Well, I wake up. I come to in a treatment center in Orange, California, and I meet this psychiatrist named Joe Persh. Now let's go back to 1980 when I went to treatment. It was a mental hospital, and women were pulling their dresses up and turning doorknobs. And I asked one lady, "Why are you turning that doorknob?" She goes, "Yeah, I don't know." And she just goes and turns doorknobs. And so I was really in a loony house, I was probably appropriate, and I was judging everybody. And then one day I had a moment of clarity. I go, these people are crazy. And then I thought, I'm in the group. What are they thinking of me? And so that was.
This guy says he played for the Cowboys in a bunch of Super Bowls.
He thinks he played for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. And so I met Joe Persh. And God rest his soul. He passed away about 6 weeks ago. And
he was a psychiatrist.
He was a psychiatrist. He treated Betty Ford, Billy Carter, Buzz Aldrin, Betty Ford,
How did you get in touch with him? Because you were Thomas Henderson? He was looking out for you? Or?
No, my lawyer in California just came by the house. I was smoking. Came by the house, picked me up. He cussed me out, and he drove me to Orange, California from Long Beach. And my life started over. I've been sober now 37 and a half years because my lawyer took me and dropped me off.
Amazing. So you'll have 38 years on November 8th, God willing, right?
Yes.
And so you meet Joe Persh. What does he start to do for you?
He starts to be very sarcastic with everything. And he introduces me to a man who had 9 years sober. He's a member of AA. And to tell you how difficult this man has been in my life, but been a blessing, he said to me on my 25th anniversary, he said, I still have your recovery in pencil.
Oh.
He said, I might think about taking it and writing it in ink when you turn 40. So he's a bastard, but I love him. He has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. He helped me become a man. He helped me become an honest man. He's helped me walk a day at a time. He took me through 12 steps and 12 reasons why I could live a different life. He restored that young boy in me that didn't like it, and didn't want it, but it was around. And, one day at a time, I've been able to do this 37 and a half years. And the time is irrelevant. It's the quality of your life, your conscience, your family, your bills, your friends, your life, that you are the truth to you. The accountability in recovery, if you want it, is that you don't like what that stuff does to you, what the alcohol, the drugs, the cocaine, the heroin, the opioids. The sooner you realize that these are the enemies of your spirit, the enemies of your family, the enemies of your children, the enemies to you, the better.
And some people never get to realize that, though.
There's still hope.
Yeah, now, is that what you say? Yeah, there's always hope.
Yes.
When you got sober, and so you still had to go to jail for 28 months. So you go into jail with 7 months sober. What is that like? Yeah. How do you stay clean in jail? How do you stay alive in jail?
Well, I had worked all the steps, which is pretty fast pace if you think about it, 7 months. But I enjoyed the vacation. I didn't have to, play for Tom Landry or Bill Walsh or Bum Phillips or Don Shula. I just had to take care of Thomas. I had a daughter, and Richard Pryor sent me $15,000 to put on my prison bank account, where I was able to pay child support during my whole 28 months. And I took care of my daughter. I read many books about recovery. I ate up the big book. It was so raggedy I had to throw it away. I mean, I couldn't even put it on a shelf. It was so raggedy. The big book I took in to the prisons, but I had a couple of fights in prison. I remember the last fight I had. I was in Susanville, and I was working out. My job was working out and get in shape firefighters. So when you see those fires in California...
Yeah. Where's Susanville, by the way? Is that Southern California?
I want y'all to know that the fireman in the red truck is not on those mountains. It is inmates. It is inmates, digging fire trails and doing all that work. So I trained those guys. So one guy, one day, challenged me to run 200. He was supposed to be fast. And I beat him by like 5 yards. I just smoked him. And I was I was only 31, but I could still run, man. I could still run. So that night in the dorm, he challenged me, and really he wanted to fight me in front of the other guys in the dorm. And so I stepped up and beat him down. And after I beat him down, he said these words, and he said, "Yeah, go to sleep." And see, then he shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
And so I had to dance with him again. And after I danced with him, I said, okay, I got to get out of here. So I went over to the door and started banging on the door. Officer comes. I said, you got to take me out of here. He said, we're not opening his doors. I said, come here. He came up, and through the door, I said, I'm going to kill him. And then he was like Barney Fife getting them keys out. Takes me out, And he takes me to the watch commander. And the watch commander said, "What's going on, Henderson?" I said, "I'm going to kill him." That's all I said for 2 hours. And next thing I know, I was on a bus headed to San Luis Obispo. And I played it too good because when I got to San Luis Obispo, they put me naked in the cell.
What the hell happens then?
No, I said, "I'm all right now." I said, "No, we can't let you out to the psychiatrist." I was in that thing for about 4 days. But so when you go to church in prison and you're sitting next to one of the Manson killers, is one of those moments of, I really am in prison.
Yeah.
And so I did my 28 months, and I know nobody wants to go to prison, but it was like I needed it. I needed those 28 months to recalibrate who I am, who I'm going to be consistently, one day at a time. And again, I was charged with a sex crime, but I have no memory of that, and that has not been anything that's been a habit or something I do. If I hurt someone, I am deeply sorry. I've worked my steps on that, and I'd do something about it if I could, but there's nothing I can do but lay words on it.
How did you reintegrate into society? Because here you are, you were this guy who people saw as having it all. I mentioned it. You were like the king of self-promotion before there was self-promotion among athletes, especially young black guys like Deion Sanders. Everybody wanted to talk to like the white skill players, and now you come along and you kind of change that. And then of course you have this amazing fall from grace. And there's got to be a time as an alcoholic, right, where you're ready to make amends, or certain people come into your life where, like you said, you do those esteemable acts, and that's how you get that self-esteem back. How did that happen for you?
Well, I came out and I just started taking care of Thomas's business. I had to deal with the Internal Revenue Service. I got married. I bought me one of the first Dell computers that came off the assembly line. I made amends where amends need to be made. I paid the IRS back. I moved back to Texas. I started 12-step groups in my office. I built a football stadium for the community and a track
in Austin.
Right now, in Austin. I raised money to do that, and then I got out there with a shovel and did the hard work of digging and cutting and digging and then on March 22nd, on my mother's birthday, I win the $28 million Texas lottery. I took the cash option at the time, and so I got $14 million. The 39% taxes on it, so I got $8.9 million. And to this day, Thomas Henderson, who was afraid of Google and afraid of the iPhone, Apple. I was too afraid to invest, and so I have been in very conservative things, and so I got 8.9 million, and 21 years later, I'm worth about half that.
That ain't bad.
Yeah, and because I was too afraid to, expose it. I have an NFL pension. I have Social Security. I have 2 NFL pensions, actually. I'm on Medicare, and the NFL pays my premium for my supplemental. So I'm doing pretty good.
And by the way, you get your 1993 is your 10-year sober birthday, and Tom Landry comes back and shows up. And
He does.
And that's kind of stuff that starts to happen to us when we get sober.
Yes. I mean, that was huge because he would not answer my text or my emails, but I gave him the invitation, and there he walks in with that red leather jacket and khakis, and he didn't bring his wife, but he came and he got up on stage and talked about me because he heard some stories from my college coaches, and he got up and his first thing he said was, "Boy, if I'd have known that, I would have never drafted him." But yeah, it was that was very powerful for him to come to my 10-year anniversary and fundraiser, and Roger Staubach and Drew Pearson and Too Tall Jones, and I've got great friends, and the people who know me, and so they've never seen me hurt a woman or force a woman to do anything. So the people who know me, and I still don't know what happened in '83, but if I look back at it, probably is the best thing in the world to happen to me, although I wouldn't wish that on anyone. But for me in particular, this boy who didn't know his father until he was 22, this boy whose mother shot her stepfather right in front of him, this boy who drank his first drink, Mickey, and threw up and didn't remember stuff. And so it all went full circle with the 151 rum. I mean, I'm a teetotaler. I'm a beer drinker. But for about a year, getting this from Richard Pryor, I'm starting to drink this 151 rum, and I'm also lighting my pipe with the 151 rum.
Yeah, which is quite a scene,
Yeah, in other words, you tell somebody it's flammable. Well, why are you drinking it if it's flammable? Well, it brings me from the moon, back to the earth, but I don't know that I'm in blackout. I don't know that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know that I'm meeting people. I don't know. I just don't know.
And that's addiction for you.
Yeah, but it's scary. How about I could have killed people?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. I got a couple more things for you before I let you go. This has been incredible. You are on the cover of Newsweek before the Super Bowl because you say about Terry Bradshaw, he couldn't spell cat if he got the C and the A. And he was pissed about that. I mean, I've seen interviews since then. He was not happy. And then you end up losing the game with the Steelers, and you have a chance to make amends to him in 1999. I read that.
At the field I was building.
He comes to do a piece for you for Fox Sports.
Yes, and I pull him to the side and I go, I'm sorry. I mean, I made amends. And he goes, oh, no. I said, Terry, I stopped him. I got his eyes. I looked him dead in the eye as a man. And now he's using it as a gimmick. I saw him on one of the Super Bowl sportscasts, and he goes, he was talking about he wasn't that smart. He's playing it up. And when I see him, I would have saw him this weekend at the Hall of Fame. Yeah. But I'm not going. I canceled because of the COVID. There's too many people in the airport. The planes are packed.
Yeah, everybody's out traveling again, and your boy Drew Pearson's getting inducted.
Yeah, my boy and Cliff.
Cliff Branch? Cliff Harris.
I sent them notes, and I hope they understand. I just don't want to expose I got both my shots, and I didn't want to expose myself, and I know a lot of those people are going to come up and want to shake your hand and give you a hug. And I've been to, 10 or 12 Hall of Fame inductions, and I know what the atmosphere is like, and I don't feel like doing that. So my life is good. I have 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren. I'm still doing this thing one day at a time.
You still getting to meetings?
Yeah, absolutely. What the hell?
I'm just
what
yeah.
the hell do you think?
Yeah, I mean, me too. That's all. That's for me. That's what it is, man. The fellowship, God.
I'm doing. I'm doing Zoom, but I sneak in a lot of meetings. Yeah.
What would you tell somebody, or what do you tell somebody that's just hanging on, trying to get a day?
Well, you got to make a decision. So I know some people have never been told that, but if you're constitutionally capable of making a decision today that I am not going to drink today, I'm not going to use today, and then when a day passes, then you say it again, I'm not going to drink or use today. And if you start your day out, even if you have no time, and if you start out and say, I'm not going to drink today, and before you know it, you'll have 37 years if you can do that every day.
Unbelievable. And that is a lot of hope. Anything you're working on now? I saw something recently that said you were working on a documentary. Is that true? I'll be looking for that.
Yes.
If that's true. What's the story with that?
Under My Bed is the film and transcript of the Thomas Henderson story. And I have not been able to find a broadcaster, Netflix or NFL. No, I guess if there's anything like sex in your story, they want to put it on headline news. But if you want to tell the story, it's no value to anybody. So
is the documentary done?
It's done. It's Under My Bed, and I mean all the parts of it are under my bed.
Sure, yeah, and we need a conglomerate. We need some company to put the finishing touches on it and put it out there, which is not easy, like Amazon or something like that.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe my children will be able to do something with it, but I spent like $200,000 filming, transcribing. It's under my bed right now. Because
we got to get somebody on that.
You know why it's under my bed?
Why?
Because it's mine.
Well, hey, Thomas, last thing. Where can people see you? Got great recovery videos out there. Where can people see you? Where can people, if they want to find you for a speaking engagement, what can they do?
Yeah, I'm kind of easy to find.
You are. I emailed you. You're the best. I sent you an email. You said call me, and I called you, and you answered the phone. That's old school AA right there.
Yeah. You can find me through the Cowboys. They're pretty good about passing on information.
Okay.
If people who want to find me. I'm ready to get out there and tell my story live. I'm a pretty good speaker.
You're a hell of a speaker. There's some stuff on YouTube. I don't know if you'll reap any of the benefits of people watching this, but they're like this one you did, I guess, in like the mid 90s, late 90s, maybe early 2000, where you're just on stage. There's like 5 parts of it, and it's unbelievable. It's on YouTube. You can find it on YouTube. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the one. Yes, I'm still clean.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I mean, I saw that before I got sober. Watching it, like getting welled up, thinking, man, can I do this? And then after I got sober, watching it 2 years later, and then I watched it just recently. And it's every time it's the same, man. You are filled with hope, and you are filled with, I can do this too.
Well, I'm still doing it one day at a time.
Yeah.
One of my sponsees recently said to me, man, what's it feel like to be 37 years sober? I said, well, if I can get through the night, it'll feel fine. He goes, damn.
That's the truth.
You got all that time and it's still down to like just today? I said, absolutely.
I got one last question for you because and this is just something I see. I'm a white dude, but you don't see as many black people in AA meetings. What do you say to the black folks that to try to get them out there or to break the stigma? It's a stigma to break, I feel like.
Well, AA2, TOO, AA2. You can go to church all you want, but AA2.
You got to go to AA2.
Yeah.
All right, Thomas, you're the man. I appreciate your time. This podcast will be up next Thursday. I'll send it to you next Thursday if you want to listen to it or share it with anybody.
Thank you, bro.
All right, man. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to The Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.